What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for another episode of my recurring countdown series, Ranked. On Ranked, we rank an artist or a band's discography, all of their studio albums from worst to best, and my own personal opinion. No compilation albums, no B-sides collections, no EPs, studio albums only, and the minimum amount required in order for me to make a ranked episode is 5. And guess how many albums The Strokes, the band up today, have? 5. The Strokes are a massively popular rock band that got their start in the early 2000s. While they were originally seen as some of the champions of rock and roll, they've been through some changes sonically over the years. There's obviously been some long gaps in between studio albums, most notably originally between 2006 First Impressions of Earth all the way to Angles in 2011, and then again since 2013's Comedown Machine, it's kind of been radio silence other than the Future Present Past EP, which was actually really good, but is unfortunately not eligible to be ranked. Please drop a like on the video today if you find yourself enjoying the content, subscribe for the love of music, and if you would consider supporting the channel on Patreon, it would mean a lot to me. It helps videos like this keep coming, and also it helps support the channel, especially in times where we're dealing with a lot of copyright issues. The feeling of stacking up a deck of cards only for them to eventually come tumbling down is a bit like First Impressions of Earth, the third studio album by The Strokes. The once heralded kings of New York and saviors of rock music were put on blast with some terrible reviews and lukewarm fan reception. I'm neither completely in love with or an intense hater of First Impressions. It's certainly a front-loaded affair, with the majority of the rippers and fun coming in the album's first half, but to say that it goes to shit after, say, Ask Me Anything wouldn't exactly be fair. I just start to feel a bit indifferent to some of what comes next. There were, however, some big wins on this record, which makes sense considering it's their longest one released to date. Electricityscape always had a dashing charm to it, with that deep-seated bass adding a rumble, and Julian feeling quite playful with his wordplay amongst the jaunty guitars. Heart in a Cage yearns like a fever dream as Julian stumbles through emotional barriers while Nick and Albert shred in a very non-Strokes up to that point way. They expanded their horizons with songs such as this. Another highlight, Ask Me Anything, hit home with really nothing other than a mellotron and Julian's voice. Unfortunately, offerings like 15 Minutes feel like a total drag amongst the skittering drums that feel like a prediction of what was coming to dominate the next decade of music. Others on the back half, Evening Sun, Killing Lies, and closing track Red Light breeze by without much of an impact, sometimes seeming like a pale or uninspired imitation of their earlier works. First Impressions of Earth really isn't a great place to start if you're looking to get more into the Strokes. They never really let the dust settle, so to speak, to let the listeners sit back and actually have a full, enjoyable listening experience. That being said, Vision of Division might just be the best song that they have ever recorded. That song kicks serious amounts of ass, the guitars are relentless, and it's so much fun to listen to. I highly recommend that you check out that, other tracks that I mentioned positively by name, and also Eyes of the World, which was a downright ambitious moment that really worked out for the band. The Strokes do the 80s, baby! Yeah! Take that, Weezer! So Angles was the first new Strokes album in 5 years, since, you know, that last guy that we just talked about? Naturally, expectations were high for the band to return to form and blast all of our collective socks off. They didn't quite do that, although the lead single Under Cover of Darkness is one of the greatest songs of the 2010s and deserves to be worshipped like the musical god that it is. It was slightly misleading as to where the album was headed, as Darkness feels relatively timeless with influences from several different decades of music, while many of the album's other tracks wander through the musical desert that is the 80s. Lucky for us, the Strokes are smart and kept a pretty tight command of the ship while navigating and honing those retro styles. Let's cut to the chase though. The songs that rock fucking rock We already name-checked the lead single, and congratulations, you're officially a Strokes fan if you love that one. But let's dig deeper and uncover the gems like Life is Simple in the Moonlight that features some of the best songwriting we've ever gotten from Julian as he reflects on the droll and normalized corruption in our society. You'll also want to toss Two Kinds of Happiness in your grab bag of strokey stroke goodness. It's got some blistering little riffs that pack a punch, and throw in Gratisfaction for good measure since it's a head bopper that's severely underrated. It's not a record that you're necessarily going to be throwing on the turntable every month or even every year for some, but when you do come back to it, it's like revisiting an old friend. I've kept it bottled up long enough. People change and opinions evolve over time. It's a fact of life. As my life changed and I grew older, I began to see 2013's Comedown Machine as more of a friend and less of an, oh, you changed for the worse type enemy. The Strokes certainly stepped out of their element in some aspects while creating this, but they channeled more of a natural progression for the band than I gave them credit for all those years ago. It was pretty easy to gravitate towards the initial singles all the time because it felt like a pretty typical Strokes song, and even One Way Trigger because of the familiar feeling it gave that most people would recognize as sounding a bit like the 80s classic Take On Me. After that, we were left with a 39-minute album in our hands to absorb and dissect, and honestly, I may have overthought and overstepped when it came to my initial feelings on poor Comedown Machine. Silver linings are all over these gray clouds, lighting up and dimming switches when necessary. Spring is the perfect time to step outside and give this record a listen while taking a walk through the city. Many of the album's themes tie into a lack of familiarity with surroundings or situations and the changes within Julian's personal life. There's a buzzing feeling that secretes a bit of a contact high for the listener, and unlike with cannabis, you really don't build up a tolerance that makes it harder to get the high, it instead gets slightly easier in my experience. It's also incredibly easy to slip into something like Partners in Crime, an electric number that shines with musical exuberance and is capped off with a sweet little guitar solo. Welcome to Japan, Tap Out, 80s Comedown Machine, and 50/50 are all striking in their own unique way, which is quite the impressive accomplishment considering they all sound like totally different ideas that managed to land somewhere in the Strokes' multiverse. The resilience and success of this album is built on the back of risks, and what bigger a risk than a ballad of sorts titled Chances? The best way I can describe it is to say that it's like musical crack. It's emotionally addicting. You feel the pain, especially once maybe you get to a point in your life where you feel like you relate to some of the lyrics. You'll be singing along, "I'll play your game," in Julian's falsetto vocal. I'm hoping to possibly change some minds by putting some extra emphasis that this album is landing at number 3 on the list. It's extremely good in a lot of different ways than their initial records were, so shake off the handcuffs that are tethering you to some sort of outdated notion of what you expected from the Strokes, and try to approach it with an open mind if you never really got into the album in the first place. Following up the massive and unrealistic expectations set by your larger-than-life debut album is nearly impossible, but it's a hurdle the Strokes were willing to jump together. Room on Fire brings the flames and spits fire in every direction on this robust 11-song package. Some of the high points on their sophomore outing were just as high, if not higher, than Is This It? There's a couple of minor retreads and less than interesting moments within songs, but there's genuinely not a song in full that I dislike in the slightest. 1251 is an ace of a single that saw Nick getting obsessed with making his guitar sound like a synth. The End Has No End has some of Julian's best vocal moments and is a total romp that you can always rock out to, and Whatever Happened is musical ecstasy and one of my favorite album openers of all time. The record rocks steady all the way through, and while I could sit here and divulge large amounts of information about why each song reigns supreme in its own way, I'll instead point you in the direction of hearing it for yourself, or else revisiting a classic album that proved lightning can strike twice in the same place. Oh, and Reptilia changed my life for the better and remains my favorite Strokes song. Just wanted to share that. Putting a timeless record into words can always be a bit hard to explain. New York City and its musical landscape was changed entirely by the popularity of bands like The Strokes, debuting with the now highly revered Is This It shortly before the 9/11 terrorist attacks. That tragedy led to the band removing New York City Cops from the US editions of the record, which is completely understandable, although I do suggest seeking out the song for yourself since it's great. Is This It is as magnetizing as it is an exercise in loose garage rock indie fun that's simply a joy to listen to. It was the introduction of Julian Casablancas as a rough-cuffed vocalist that often let his voice get a bit buried in the mix intentionally, allowing the lyrics to dance around the swirl of pumping guitar and drum rhythms. The music sounded vintage in some ways and new in others. More so than anything else, it was the Strokes carving out their own lane by adding unique DNA to already existing formulas. The risque Barely Legal shows the album reaching a bit of a fever pitch, while Last Night and Someday, the fantastic and beloved singles that they are, kept audiences humming along and ready to dance. Gems like Soma are personal favorites of mine and often get the sleight of hand when compared to the singles. The darker snare Alone Together adds is a great nuance that this record needs in order to add variety, and the track's lead and rhythm guitars are a damn treat. The title track and the amazing finale Take It or Leave It do that as well in their own way, with the latter of those building a bellowing song out of a simple riff and Julian's overpowering voice, which is a bit of a change. Even though this album is widely known and loved, we can all fall into that pit of just remembering the singles, so be sure to show those deep cuts some love as well. The Strokes found a pulsating energy and rhythm that was so audibly lively and loose, yet perfectly timed and catchy. That's not easy to accomplish as a young band, so that's why I list this as not only one of the best debut albums of all time, it's simply one of the greatest albums in general. The Strokes remain popular and well loved to this day, and I do hope that 2019 or 2020 gives us new music from them, although, knock on wood, that would outdate my list almost instantly, and in the case that that does happen, I will leave a pinned comment letting you know my updated ranked list. Other than that, I do hope that you enjoyed the video today. Let me know how you would rank all 5 of the Strokes' studio albums in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video today, then please drop a like on it and subscribe for the love of music. Your support on Patreon is appreciated. Thank you so much to my current patron Josh that is pledging at the $50 a month level. If you would like to check out another Strokes video, then tap right here, it's my top 10 favorite Strokes songs, or tap here for another episode of Ranked. Other than that, my socials can be found in the description, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.